my relationship with my body has led me to listen much deeper to what my needs are. And so at the beginning, I had this goal of having these 8-hour days where I got, multiple client sessions per day and had a 3-day week and saw 24 clients a week. And then when it was time for me to start my intern practice, I realized that my body kind of giggled at that concept. That's not going to work.
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Lauren Selfridge, a private practice entrepreneur in San Francisco, California. Listen as she talks about how adjusting to life with multiple sclerosis has changed her way of thinking about herself, her business, and therapy. No matter what's going on with your health, you'll get a ton of ideas for your business and life. Hi, Lauren. Welcome to Therapist Clubhouse.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you about your entrepreneurial journey, and this is a great excuse to do that. So you've had a pretty major transformation in your business and in your life since being diagnosed with MS. And you're now creating an awesome podcast related to that and the experience of other people living with chronic illnesses. So I'm really excited to talk to you about all of that and glad that you're here. So how long ago did that diagnosis happen, and can you just talk to us a little bit about the changes that brought to your business?
Sure. Yeah. So I was actually finishing up my graduate career at California Institute of Integral Studies. And about 3 years ago, I started getting symptoms, and it was a few months that went by before I got diagnosed. But I was actually just beginning my year of practicum when I got this diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. It was a huge surprise. And so I wound up basically in the first year of practicum, both learning how to be a therapist in the room live versus just practicing like in the rest of grad school, and learning how to be someone living with chronic illness. And so it's hard for me to separate the business and the practice of being a therapist with my journey with MS, because they're BFFs. They started out together,
Yeah. So it wasn't as much that it was like a change in your business as much as it really impacted how you have developed every part of your business.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's had a really big impact on how I do the work.
What are some of those things? What do you notice?
So, on a very practical level, my relationship with my body has led me to listen much deeper to what my needs are. And so at the beginning, I had this goal of having these 8-hour days where I got, multiple client sessions per day and had a 3-day week and saw 24 clients a week. And then when it was time for me to start my intern practice, I realized that my body kind of giggled at that concept. That's not going to work. And so just on a practical level, I've found that it's taken some trial and error, and I've come to find that 4 hours a day works for me for client work. And so I'll see up to 4 clients a day, 3 days a week. And so that's what works for me. And then on a spiritual level, one of my big practices as a therapist has been to allow whatever emotions are present for me to be in my body and in the room when I'm working with clients. Because if I try to push them away, they distract me. So I just think of my emotional processes as superpowers. And then I realized that I could do the same thing with my symptoms. So I have fatigue, I have brain fog, I have dizziness that show up as some of my symptoms. And for a while, for actually the first year, I would resist those symptoms and try to make them go away. I would get frustrated with them, which I totally understand why I did that. It's not fun. But then I was like, well, what if I practice the same thing that I'm doing with my emotions and do it with my symptoms? And so by allowing for my symptoms and my emotions to be what they are, I'm able to be more present in the room with my clients. And I can talk to my clients about what's happening for them and their bodies and their relationships with those processes that arise. So now I'm actually focusing my practice on working with people who have chronic illness.
Oh, okay. And so as you kind of let those things into the room, I'm wondering how that changes things. Like as you, I'm kind of thinking out loud with you, Lauren, but like as you're, let's say, experiencing some brain fog in a moment, and instead of saying like, come on, clear up, Lauren, like get with it, you're more like, okay, so that's what's happening right now. How does that shift things?
So one of the big ways it shifts things is, as somebody who is a fairly new therapist, been doing it for 3 years, a little under 3 years, I had this idea of who I had to be in order to be a successful therapist. And one of the concepts was that I had to be really sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And so brain fog came along and said, actually, you can be a great therapist even when you don't have the same quick cognitive processes that you're used to having and identifying with. So it's been really cool to sit with brain fog and to know, oh, wow, I forgot the name of this client's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to acknowledge that and maybe even laugh about it together, or to realize that sometimes my cognitive process can keep me from presence. So if I'm too in my head and I'm too sharp, I'm not staying with my client. So I've actually found there are ways that I've been more emotionally present with people because I know that my only job is to just be there with them. That's my main job. And so in a way, I think these symptoms and my non-resistance of them has actually made me a better therapist.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, Lauren. And that in that example, if you weren't having this relationship with brain fog that you're working on, then like, let's say if you, like absolutely all of us do, forgot a name that you didn't want to forget, then you might try to cover it up, or you might try to kind of talk around it. And the fact that you're being present with it just opens up another opportunity.
Yeah, it does. And it gives them permission to be whoever and wherever they are. I mean, that's my prayer and my hope for everybody who walks through the door of my practice is that they feel welcome exactly as they are. And so I can't give them that unless I'm giving that to myself first.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, did anybody model this for you, or is this something that you had to come to kind of going against the grain of what you were being taught?
Who really modeled this for me was maybe 15 years ago, I found a book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is. And at the time, I had no relationship with chronic illness or any challenges with my body. And her work is one that allows people to kind of question their troublesome thoughts and experience the opposite of the stressful thinking, and kind of almost brain games to play with how am I limiting my experience in the world through stressful thinking. So I just really resonated with that. But the books that she's written incorporate a lot of her physical challenges into them. And so there are times where she was blind. She has Bell's palsy, and I don't know if she still has it or if she had it, but she has had issues with her vision, and she would write about it from this perspective of wonder. And even though I didn't relate personally, I remember feeling this aliveness, reading how she would say, I couldn't find the dial for the washing machine, and I noticed that I tried, and suds started to come out, and then I got feedback from the universe or whatever. And she would say, isn't it exciting? I notice if I walk forward and I can't go any further, it's because the wall is giving me feedback that I can't go any further. And so she has this childlike delight that really helped me so much. So I think the day I got diagnosed, I kind of channeled her, and I was like, well, if Byron Katie can make this an adventure, then so can I. And I love that. I love her her way of. I remember there was one passage where she talks about she trips and falls, and she says, "I noticed how the ground supported me." Like it was still there for me. So I have felt that in a lot of ways, her approach has helped me. And my favorite quote from her that is kind of my guiding words of wisdom in my life. Her quote is, "It wasn't as she had planned. It was perfect instead."
Ooh. Yeah.
So and that's actually how I got the concept for the name of my podcast.
That's what I was just thinking. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Drum roll for people who don't already know.
Drum roll. This is not what I ordered. That's the name of the podcast.
Yes.
And it's just this concept that nobody plans to have this illness.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. And now what? And oftentimes my life has become much richer and more beautiful from the things that I didn't plan or want. So, yeah, here I am.
Yeah. And I mean, I got really into Byron Katie's work for a little while, and you're making me want to get back to it. But it's very challenging. Like looking at a situation in such a different way before you've made that transition into looking at it the way you're looking at it, it's really challenging. And I'm imagining that you work with some of your clients in a way that guides them through that challenge, before they're feeling the way that you're feeling about it.
Yeah. And I also want to just say, I don't always feel this way about it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like 5 minutes later, I might feel really frustrated or angry. Yeah. Or sad. I mean, sadness comes up for a lot of the clients I work with where we're grieving in a way because there's a life that we have planned for ourselves. And to realize that it's not going the way that we planned, even though it can be really beautiful and amazing, that part of respecting the process is that we don't have to pretend we feel like it's beautiful and amazing when we don't feel that way.
Like it's okay to be pissed off.
Yeah.
Sad, frustrated, stuck, all those things.
Totally. In fact, those things are calling for our love and attention. And so that's my approach with clients is I'm working with you, walking with you on your path and helping you to befriend yourself in a deeper way than you ever have before.
How did people with chronic illnesses start finding you?
A few different ways. One is that I gave a talk at one of the Multiple Sclerosis Center support meetings. And it was really amazing. I got to talk about mindfulness and chronic illness and spirituality and got to meet amazing people. I have multiple sclerosis, so we definitely had that connection. And then some of the doctors have sent clients to me after having seen my talk, and that's been really amazing because there's something really special about knowing what it's like to have the very specific diagnosis that my client has. And I think they like that too. Like sometimes they'll call me and they'll say, I have MS and here's what I'm going through. And at some point in the call, sometimes I'll reveal that I also have MS, and I just hear this relief and excitement in their voices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not having to explain things, not just like medical things, but not having to explain so many emotional things too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on another level, people have found me through other therapists who are my colleagues or through Yelp.
Okay. And I mean, I think you already know this, but I got to warn you, like you're going to get a lot more inquiries as soon as your podcast comes out as well.
Yeah, that's what I call a wonderful dilemma.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about that. Because I know we're we're going to get more into your podcast, but what are your plans so far? We know plans are funny things that can keep shifting, but what are your plans so far of how to deal with that when probably more people than you can work with want to work with you?
Well, one of the hopes is that I will create an online resource for other mental health practitioners who work specifically with chronic illness.
Oh, beautiful.
And yeah, I already have a group of a little over 100 that another therapist, Kelsey Crow, and Kelsey is in North Carolina. She and I created a group called Abundant Wellness for Therapists, and it's for therapists who live with chronic illness. And it's a private Facebook group. And then, so a lot of those therapists do work with people with chronic illness. And I know there are people all over the country and the world who either have chronic illness and are thinking about starting to work with clients, or who already do. And then the other thing is that I'm going to be creating other ways for people to engage in the material that's brought up in the podcast. So I'm going to have a Facebook group for people that will allow them to connect and communicate with each other and provide support, and also potentially down the line create other products like ebooks and e-courses, maybe even a membership site, and find other ways to connect with people outside of just therapy.
Yeah. Gosh, I think the community aspect is going to be so big that I'm imagining, and I'm sure you're imagining, a lot of people are going to be asking for more of that. So I wonder if, maybe we'll do like part 2 after this gets going and find out what's happening. But I'm thinking there are going to be people just yearning to get connected with each other. And that I know you're providing the Facebook group to start that, but you might end up wanting to do like a deeper way of them getting to stay connected, like some kind of, community.
Yeah.
So that's so cool, Lauren.
Thank you. I've really appreciated your support. You and I are part of a group together, Healthcasters, where you've actually been a great mentor to me in this podcast world.
Oh, yeah. I love being able to because I'm still fairly at the beginning. I think this is like episode 23 or somewhere around that. And I love being able to take all this stuff that's been brewing for me and that I've been learning and share some of it. So
it makes a big difference.
Yeah, but I love Healthcasters. That's like one of the first, whenever I log on to Facebook, that's one of the first places I find myself wanting to go and seeing what's up with other podcasters.
Yeah, it's a great group.
Yeah, so we can highly recommend that, and we'll stick that in the show notes too. So tell me about the decision to start your podcast is a big deal. And I get what a big deal it is because, I'm doing the same thing. And I've also been really impressed with the way you've been doing it. So you've been out there a lot on Facebook Live talking about the podcast, and you've been doing it in this really great way that feels so relatable and open and transparent and just interacting with your audience in this beautiful way. So how did you decide to do that? How did you decide to start using Facebook Live?
So my vision for the podcast is actually bigger than the podcast itself. It's that, like we were just talking about, I want there to be a community of people who are talking about the deeper spiritual wisdom that arises through the chronic illness process. And there are a lot of great resources out there for symptom management and how to look at different types of treatment and healing. And what I felt was missing was something around the mindfulness and spirituality piece. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to interview people about the highs and lows of the emotional experience and how people are managing their lives now that they're different than they thought, or some people have been living with conditions their whole lives. And so so bigger than the podcast is, like I said, the community online and wanting to create places for people who, I think people with chronic illness are wisdom holders. I think we're amazing and that there's so much to be sharing both with each other and with the rest of the world. And in a lot of ways, people with chronic illness have been seen as folks who are inspirations to people without chronic illness or health challenges. I know I keep saying chronic illness, but it's not just chronic illness. It's also just any challenges with the body. And so I think it would be cool for us to turn to each other and really, really talk in a way that helps the community of people who are living with this stuff. And so the Facebook Live came in when I realized that, wow, wouldn't it be cool to use Facebook Live as a tool in the Facebook community for the podcast, where I could potentially interview folks who have been guests on the podcast for a follow-up Q&A live and allow people who have already listened to ask questions of this person.
Ooh, that is so smart.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, what am I waiting for? I don't have to wait till I have the podcast. I can start making this information part of how I am marketing myself. So I can start by being real and honest and open in my own community of Facebook friends, which, by the way, just as a side note, I'm not somebody who has a huge Facebook following for my psychotherapy page yet. I think I have like a little under 500, but my personal Facebook page is over 2,000 people. And so one of my colleagues said to me, Lauren, why don't you start using that network as your way to promote your business? And I thought, wow, why didn't I think of that? So that's just a little note for everybody that wherever you can get out there, do it.
Yeah.
So I've been making these, I've made over 10 Facebook Live videos of just me talking about the podcast and my journey with MS. And what's happened is people relate and they feel like they know me better, and I'm humanizing the whole thing, which has been a growth journey for me because a lot of me wants to be this manicured, polished therapist who has, like a teleprompter that I'm reading from, but that isn't what people connect with. And I've had a lot more fun doing the unplanned Facebook Live stuff and even doing a few interviews over Facebook Live with other people. And I realized that, wow, the less I plan, the more fun I have.
I think this is really the way to go, especially with Facebook Live. You're going to be my role model in this because I think, especially if you're going to share things with your friends, in your personal profile, then that's what it needs to be, is really personal. And that's why the people who are just connected to you personally / professionally, they're going to want to hear from you or from any of us about what feels most important and like what is really in our heart and, something that we truly care about. And they're probably going to be, especially in that particular space, they're probably going to be more turned off if it feels really slick and markety, right? So I think it's the best kind of marketing when it's a true conversation.
Yeah. And there is something magical about the imperfection of the ums and the pauses and the giggles that come up when I talk to people live on Facebook. And I mean, I will say it was so scary that I likened my first Facebook Live to jumping off an airplane, which, by the way, I've never done. So it was my version of jumping off an airplane because all the inner critic voices kept saying, what are you doing? People are just going to watch you like sneeze without a tissue or like you're just going to be in this horrible compromised position and people are going to think that you're ridiculous and hate you forever. And I was kind of like, oh, that's why people don't do Facebook Live or other things that are scary, is because we just want to protect ourselves. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. And I did my first Facebook Live and it was totally imperfect and I was a little stiff, but nobody cared.
Not that stiff though. I mean, I went back and looked at it and it was great. I mean, you were being funny about the fact, I think you were, I can't remember exactly, but I think that you were at one point like, wait, how do I stop this thing? I think, oh, hey, you guys, there's a button that tells you how to stop it. Like, you were just great. So
Thanks.
I, I think that's what we've got to be doing.
Yeah, well, I will also just volunteer if you ever would like a Facebook Live buddy. What I've been doing is telling people, because it's not just for this podcast or the chronic illness community. I think our whole world is about to change because of Facebook Live.
Yeah.
I think for people who live with chronic illness or health challenges, we don't get out of our houses often as much as the average person does. So to have these human connections through video is incredible. And my heart has lit up on days when I feel fatigue because of being able to connect live. And so I'm just trying to create a movement in the world along with Ernesto Segismundo from filmit.com, who is my inspiration for Facebook Live. I want everybody to be doing it because it's scary and it's amazing and transformative. So I'm telling everyone, if you want to do live and you want a buddy for the first time so that you're not doing it by yourself, let me know and I will do it with you.
Okay, let's do it, Lauren. I did, like, I think I've done 2 now. And the way that I did them was, I'm just going to start this the way that I started my blog years and years ago, which is just to sneak it on there, like really short. Just sneak it on there when no one's really looking, just to get used to it.
Yes.
So like, that's another way to go, is like, just start and know that it's just going to get more comfortable. So that's the stage I'm at with it.
Yeah. And also if you're part of a smaller group on Facebook, like I have a group that's just my mom's side of the family. And my brother and I did a live one day and we were just practicing and being goofy together. And I think like 13 people could see it.
Oh, that is a great idea.
It's a low stakes way to begin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because you're starting your podcast to start getting the word out more and to help more people. But by doing this stuff with Facebook Live, you've also already started. And I realize I've said Facebook Live so many times now, I feel like it's becoming an ad for them, but it's not really about them. It's just where people are and you can have a conversation with them.
Yeah. And there is something specific about the technology that allows people to do thumbs up and hearts and things as you're speaking live, which it's almost like replicating nonverbal feedback. So people are saying, yes, that resonates for me, or, oh, haha, that was funny. And people who are watching can make comments. And so it's very special to see that kind of feedback of energy where somebody gets recognized in their comment and you're having a conversation with them. And so that's why it's better than like a pre-recorded situation. It's literally it's alive,
Excellent. Yeah.
And I promise Facebook isn't paying me to say this either.
Nope, they're not. You're for real. So I want to ask you a few things about your practice that I know people are going to be mad at me if I don't ask you. What do you charge?
My 45-minute sessions are $160.
Great. How did you decide to do 45-minute sessions?
Because my supervisor, Renee Beck, was actually instrumental both in giving me the confidence and courage to have a fee at that level, as well as just sharing with me that maybe those extra 5 minutes could be really helpful because I am dealing with the physical strain of fatigue. And so to have 15 minutes between sessions has made a huge difference. I'm telling you, the 5 minutes really does shift things because I can sometimes meditate for 5 minutes extra and then still have time for notes and to go to the bathroom, or I can take a very quick nap. And
this is amazing. Makes me,
I'm telling you, I think my sessions are better because of it.
That is good. And at the very least, I'm hoping this inspires people to stop on time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like even if they're going to stick with 50, that is great. How do you now feel about your fee?
I feel really good about it. It did take work, math work, emotional work. What's helped a lot is to surround myself with other therapists who believe in me and who believe that it's okay to ask for a rate that works for me.
Yes.
And so I've had several mentors in that, and have seen therapists who have gone before me, who have taken years to get to the point where they're finally ready to ask for more. And I thought, well, why don't I just believe them that I'll get to that place and just do it now?
Yes. And have you ever had, I think you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add about having a low or scary moment in your business and how you got through it.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most typical scary part about having a client income based, or I don't know, how do you say it? When your practice is based on clients showing up and
Like
paying
butts
you.
and seats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The scary part about that is that it changes, and it can change overnight. And it's been very similar to how I've dealt with the chronic illness. It's like you cannot control when the symptoms arise. You can do things to strengthen your body, just like you can strengthen your practice by marketing and networking. But sometimes reality just happens the way that it does. And so what's been helpful for me was, I remember one day this summer, I was feeling the fear, and I thought, well, right, so I think my job right now isn't to solve it. My job right now is to feel the fear. And so I was in a car ride to my office, and I just was like, what if I just felt scared the whole way to my office? And I did, and it was beautiful. I mean, it wasn't awful. It was actually kind of sweet, because I just needed to be able to feel scared. And then later that night, I got like 3 new client inquiries.
Interesting. So like you didn't try and like clench. You just let it happen.
Yeah. And again, I'm not always that good.
No, I know, but it's helpful. It's really helpful to all of us to get these ideas. But yeah, I know. I mean, it's not like there's a scary moment and then everything's perfect from then on.
Right. Sometimes it's a scary moment and then it's scarier. It's scary again.
Absolutely. And Lauren, if you could time travel to when you were very first starting your private practice, what would you tell the Lauren of that time?
I would tell her that your graduate education in psychotherapy is preparing you for much more than just psychotherapy. And the skills that you possess are going to be able to serve you in ways that you could never imagine, and to stay open to those possibilities, because even though your mind can't conceive of them right now, they're going to show up. And actually, at that point in time, I wasn't diagnosed. So one of the opportunities was, you're going to learn how to love yourself and your body in a way you never did before. And now you're going to be able to work with people to do the same thing.
Fabulous. Will you help me with a listener question?
Yes.
Listener question.
All right. So this person has said, I have to cut back on my hours in private practice due to personal health issues. I don't want to let my current clients down, but the fees I charge are too low now that I can't take on more clients. What should I do to make more money in less time? So this is like an impossible question, but more than us having the right answer, I just thought we should join this person and talk to them about it a little bit.
Yes, and I can really relate to that. Figuring out that my body wasn't up for as much as my mind wanted to be up for was a disappointment. And it also led me to think of outside of the box and think of what are some other ways I can be bringing in income. That's part of why I wanted to do the podcast, actually, which is more of a long-term financial thing, because it's not going to immediately make money, but over time I'll be able to create products that I don't have to be sitting in a seat across from clients in order to be bringing in income. So one thing that comes to my mind when I hear this question is, I don't know the person or what specifically the limitations are, But now that I've seen the power of video, I've actually shifted my practice to be available for online sessions as well. And I wonder if the person who wrote this question might consider doing some either phone sessions or online sessions in order to open up their availability for other people who might be having health challenges and also can't be leaving their homes as often. That it maybe the capacity will change if the person doesn't have to leave their home in order to do these sessions.
Great. I had not thought of that. And I'm thinking to definitely listen to everything you've already said about looking at protecting your time. And then there's sort of like this impossible dilemma that they're describing of, I can't let my clients down. I can't take on more clients. I can't raise my fees. And so I think just notice that dilemma that you're in, and that you're asking the question means that it's really not working for you. And that, I think Lauren and I would like to give you permission to raise your fees if you need to. Also, that, this is tough, but it's also, if you're in a position right now where you're doing things that hurt you because you're trying to put your clients in front of yourself, then that's just such a bad setup. So I love the idea of looking at this really creatively, like you've said, Lauren, of looking at video, looking at what are the different ways that you could be working that would drain you less. And then also just know you have our support in thinking about raising your fees.
Yeah, absolutely. And that fear can come up when we talk about fee raising, and all of it is worth working with because ultimately we'll need to work with the fear anyway. So why not do it now?
Yeah. And I think like our friend Tiffany McLean has said, like, yeah, so many of the things that we do as therapists are hard. Like fees are hard too. And we sometimes have to do the really hard thing.
Yeah.
So what is the very best place for therapists to find you and throw compliments at you? And I'll put in the caveat that I'm going to also have, because I know you've got a lot of different things going on. I'm going to have all of those in the show notes.
Yeah. The best way is to just visit thisisnotwhatiordered.com.
Awesome. It's such a beautiful website too, by the way.
Thank you. It was really fun to make.
Thank you, Lauren. I so appreciate your time and wisdom.
Thank you. It was so awesome to be able to do this with you.
Great. That was so fantastic, Lauren.
That was really fun. I want to do this every Friday morning.
All right.
Maybe I should have a podcast.
My idea to try this week is to do a Facebook Live. Check out my Facebook page, facebook.com/coachingwithannie, and you'll see a Facebook Live on the date September 22nd, the day I'm recording this podcast. I haven't actually recorded it yet, but now that I said that, I know I'm going to. In my Facebook Live, I'll give you a pep talk about doing your first Facebook Live. So again, that's at facebook.com/coachingwithannie. Thanks for listening to Therapist Clubhouse. If you're ready to bring in more clients, you've got to figure out what's working in your business and what needs the most attention. Take my free assessment, the Private Practice Strength Assessment. It'll take you about 10 minutes and you'll know what you need to do next. Go to coachingwithannie.com and click on Give Me the Assessment. See you next week. Let me say that part again.